Okay, we're back with the big summer movie series of tutorials here on Planet Photoshop, and this week we've got two big movies opening. We have Terminator Salvation and the new Night at the Museum sequel. And I had a hard time figuring out which movie I was going to do a tutorial on this week because there's a lot of cool possibilities, but ultimately I went with Terminator just because it has so many more cooler design possibilities and just, the graphics just look awesome. But even when I decided that, I had a little trouble deciding exactly what to do, whether it be a text effect or any other effect like that. So I got on my Twitter page for Planet, which I'm at Planet Photoshop, by the way, if you're on Twitter. And I asked around to get any ideas, and everybody, put forth some good ideas and gave me a little bit of fuel to think on. But ultimately, I decided to do something that I didn't really consider. We're going to create the Terminator face, the actual metal face, but we're going to do it a bit differently. I could probably spend a great deal of time and illustrate it on my own, but given the span of this tutorial, we don't have time to do all that. So we're going to kind of cheat and just kind of manipulate something that already exists. So I went to iStock Photo and found this image of this skull. It's a metallic skull that I found. And I thought that was very cool, and it's a good start for building a Terminator-looking image. So here I have it on its own layer, as you can see right here, and what we're going to do first is go into the filter menu and go to liquify, and we get this giant window here. And what we're going to be doing in here is basically sculpting our Terminator from this image. So we want to go in here and get a relatively good brush size. I'm going to go with about 110 for the brush size, and let's set the brush density, or leave it at 50. I'm going to set the brush pressure at 50 as well. And what that's going to allow us to do is to come in here and basically push these elements of this image pretty much anywhere we want them to be. And in the case of the Terminator, we want to have it more of an angry looking face. So we're just going to push these eyes down, kind of push that up, but we're going for that really angry look. Let's kind of push this down a little bit. Let's kind of nudge that out. So we're just sculpting those eyes to look like a very mean Terminator, like that. So that looks pretty good. Well, I'm going to continue on by manipulating some other areas of this. I want to, this jawline right here looks a little organic. It's just kind of got a rounded edge. So if we just take this and push it up, we can start to get more straight, angular lines to give it a more of a robotic look versus an organic look. So we'll just kind of straighten those out. Let's just kind of push and straighten these. And it's giving us that much more angular look, just like the Terminators would actually be. I'm going to go ahead and push my brush size down a little bit, and let's modify this nose. So let's push the nose in and give it much more straighter lines, just like that. I'm going to make a couple of more changes to the nose once we're back inside the file, but I think you get the idea. So we've got it looking a lot different. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and it's going to bring us back in. And there we have a much more meaner face. So if I do an undo and redo, look at that. We went from that to that, and we didn't lose a whole lot of detail because of the surface of this skull. It's maintaining its good quality there because it's got a lot of just the smooth edges or smooth area in there. So let's go in here, and we're going to change a couple more things. I'm actually going to remove the color information on this. You can notice there's a little bit of color in there. I'm just going to press Shift-Command-U, and it's going to do a desaturate on that. And let's bring up our levels. Let's go under Image and go to Adjustment and choose Levels. And here I'm just going to take the black eyedropper tool and just click once inside this eye. And it's going to basically black out those areas and darken up and just give it a little bit more contrast overall the whole thing. But the main thing is I want it to black out those eyes. That looks pretty cool. So go ahead and click OK. Well, now I'm going to quickly go over here, go to Image, go to Duplicate. And we're going to make this into a quick displacement map. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that background layer. And I'm just going to press Shift-Delete. And we're going to use 50% gray and fill it. So there we have that. Let's go under the Layer menu and go to Flatten Image. Then go to File, Save As. And I don't know, we'll just call this Displace. Save it to the desktop as a PSD document, Photoshop file. And we'll go ahead and close that. Well, now what I want to do is apply a texture to this. I'm going to go ahead and open up a texture file I have. Again, this is a stock image. I actually got this one from Fotolia.com, which is very similar to iStock. And I'm just going to drag and drop this into this file. And let's go ahead and scale this up so it basically covers the entire area of the skull. Then let's go into the Filter menu and go to Distort, Displace, and we're going to apply that file. So we're going to set the horizontal and vertical scale to 50, stretch to fit, wrap around, go ahead and click OK, and it's going to ask me to find that file. And in this case, there it is. It's that displace file we just created. Click open, and there you can see it's been distorted that image based on that. Well, let's go ahead and clip that inside of the skull. So I'm going to go ahead and hold my Option key down and clip that image right inside there. And let's simply change the blend mode from normal to overlay. So now we went from a smooth skull like that to a little bit more damaged one. Look, it's got some wear and tear on it. It looks pretty cool. So I don't necessarily need this to be 2 layers anymore, so I'm just going to press Command E and merge that down, and now we've got the complete skull ready to go. So let's go ahead and drop this into a layout image. So here I have a file I've already created for the background. It's already got a black background on it. Let's take that skull and drag and drop it into this file. And let's push it up to right about there. I think that looks pretty good. And now our Terminator is starting to come together. Well, we got to add the eyes. We need the eyes in this image. So let's go in here and let's create a new blank layer. Going to go up in here and let's grab our rectangular or our elliptical marquee tool rather, right there. Let's go in here, just drag out a circle. And I'm going to go and get a bright red color in my swatch panel here and just press Option Delete and fill it in. Let's go ahead and drag a duplicate. So I'm going to hold down, let's grab our move tool, hold down the Option key and the Shift key rather. Option Shift, that would be Alt Shift on Windows. Drag a duplicate over. There we are. Looking pretty good. Let's go over here and grab our eraser tool. Zoom in here a little bit. I'm just going to erase a little angle of this eye so it has a little bit, almost like it's being a shadow cast on the eye from up top there. Gives it that meaner look. That looks pretty good. Well, now let's apply some layer style to this. I'm going to go into here and we're going to apply a bevel and emboss, but we're going to set it to an outer bevel. And I'm going to increase that depth quite a bit. Basically, I'm going to push the depth all the way to 1,000. Here in the direction, we're going to change it to down. And notice it's giving me kind of a inset of the eye a little bit. Pretty cool. But let's change that color from white to kind of a lighter red, almost like it's reflecting the eye a little bit. So if I just change that color of the highlight mode, there you can see that eye looks pretty cool. Let's add one more element to this, or actually a couple more things. While we're still inside this layer style, let's add an inner glow, and I'm going to set that inner glow right in here under the elements section to center, and then let's increase the size. So it kind of gives me that subtle little glow in the middle there. So that looks pretty good. One last thing, let's add a pattern overlay, and inside the pattern menu we're going to choose this pattern right here. So you can see this is kind of like a swirly line kind of effect, but we're going to increase the scale of it considerably. And we're going to set the blend mode to overlay. Actually, hard light might show it better. And we'll drop that opacity down. So it gives it a little bit of, something going on inside the eye rather than it just being a plain color like that. Which that does look fine, but by adding that, it adds a little bit more to it. So that looks pretty cool. But let's go ahead and create another new blank layer above that. And grab our paintbrush tool. And notice where we still have that same red here in the foreground. We're going to use a very soft edge brush, and before we start painting, let's change the blend mode of this layer from normal, again, to overlay, and just paint areas around the eyes so it looks as though the light coming out of the eye is shining on the sides of the eye area here. Let's paint that area there. Because we're in overlay mode, it's only really going to affect the lighter areas. It's not even doing anything until the darker areas. So that looks pretty cool. Looking like a Terminator. Let's go ahead and minimize this. Or go ahead and close that rather. Alright, so we're almost there. All we got to do now is really add the text. So I've got some text already set here, but we need to add a couple elements to it. Let's go ahead and grab that same image we used for our displacement map, or that we applied the displacement map to, and let's just drag We don't need the entire area. Let's just go drag a section of it. And that section there, grab that move tool and just move it, or drag and drop it into this image. We'll just drag it over that text, and since we're over that text in the layers panel, just hold your option key down and then click and set that in there. So now that texture is inside the text, as you can see right there. There it is. Now let's make it a little bit more readable by just simply going here and adding a layer style to that text. I'm going to double click on that layer and let's throw a bevel and emboss on that and push the depth up. Maybe drop the size down to 1. It gives me that really cool metal beveled look. So I think we have time to do one last thing. Let's take that skull and all these layers, just move it up a little bit. That's looking pretty cool. I'm going to select that background layer and go ahead and create a new blank layer above it. And let's grab our gradient tool. And let's set the foreground to black. We actually need to set this layer above the skull layer. And we're just going to use that black as our foreground color. Using the foreground to transparent gradient, we're just going to come in from the middle of that text and just drag up a little bit. And this is just going to make the text a little bit more readable in front of that Terminator face there. Looking pretty cool. And that is pretty much it. Creating your own Terminator face right from an existing image we had right from the iStock websites.